So I'm delighted to be here and to share material about managing menopause in the workplace and out the workplace now, obviously, because women are very often working from home at the moment. And I was particularly taken by what Shola said about not happening on my watch. And it just made me feel, it reminded me why I'm doing this, because I feel that all women have a right to know how to manage their health, especially as this age group is the fastest growing sector in the workplace. And I just feel passionately, how on earth can women be expected to carry on competing with men in the workplace, to fulfill their potential, to feel confident and capable when they're being bowled over by symptoms of the menopause? It's cruel. And a study done last year that was published, a Mayo Clinic study on doctors and gynecologists, showed that only 7% of them felt able to help women going through the menopause. So women need to get tooled up, they need to understand. So I've been around for a long time. For those of you that don't know me, I've written 28 books now on self-help books, some of them on menopause. I helped women with PMS, first of all, and we've been helping women all around the world to manage their symptoms for a long time. And I've also done lots of broadcasting. I have my own TV show. And 3 years ago, I was in a situation where someone told me about Facebook films and Facebook Live. And so I made a few films on my phone, which was really scary. But over 12 weeks, those little 4 films got seen by over 1 million women. And I had just an overwhelming number of emails, as you can imagine, with all the suffering. And I felt that I really needed to rise up somehow to help women in groups and to get the message out, because I've been helping women with my 5-month program on a one-to-one basis for 28 years, helping them to overcome their symptoms. I knew it was possible and that they didn't need to go on suffering. So the cost of menopause now, according to Forbes, $810 billion globally is costing every single year due to lost productivity and also associated healthcare costs. And I don't think most companies really realize that. We've done lots of different surveys, and we calculated just on the back of an envelope that it's costing about £8 million for women in the UK, and that, sorry, there are 8 million women in the UK going through it and 280 million lost to the economy. And we calculated that that's about £5,500 per woman. And obviously lots of talent is being lost along the way. So the symptoms that you'll see, and some of them you won't see because people are too scared to tell you about them, is that obviously the flushes are the things when you notice women are sweating, but you don't necessarily see them having panic attacks and palpitations, or having brain fog so they can't remember what they were saying mid-sentence, or feeling so tired that they can't get out of bed because they haven't slept all night. So these are things, and especially women at home at the moment with the added stress of COVID-19, which is knocking women who are already feeling at the edge sideways. And so it's really important that we work out a way to help these women to have what I call a midlife refuel, because that's all it is. It's not rocket science. When you learn how to get your nutrients into an optimum range and to balance your hormones, Mother Nature has given us the tools. We can do it naturally without taking any drugs. So we're not the only ones who've done surveys in this area. The CIPD did a survey on 5,000 women, and they found that 59% of them were experiencing symptoms that had a negative impact on their work life. And the main thing is fear. Women are scared stiff of talking about it in the workplace because it may have a negative impact. So we've been working within corporations for the last few years, and we did a couple of small studies at Ground Control and Womble Bond Dickinson looking at the impact of menopause. So this was an anonymous survey where women were talking about their suffering. So you can see on these slides how insomnia, mood swings, aches and pains, fatigue, brain fog, and so on, they were quite similar ranges of symptoms, except probably all around 50%, maybe fatigue was a bit more. But women are commonly, and every woman goes through menopause, and 80% of women suffer with symptoms. And in terms of productivity, well, I know when we did a study in the workplace at Kimberly Clark on PMS, that the women probably were a bit shy to come forward with the truth. But in this case, 50% at Ground Control said that their productivity was affected, and 70% at Womble Bond Dickinson. And over half of them felt that they weren't able to speak to their line manager because they were too scared. Our survey on 1,000 women in the workplace showed that 84% of them felt that their productivity was affected by menopause, and 75% said it was for more than 8 days a month. And interestingly, only 20% were taking time off work. They were turning up for work even though they were scared and finding it difficult to perform in the workplace. And in terms of communication, not only did nearly half of them find it hard to talk to their boss, but I was amazed that nearly half of them said that it was hard for them to communicate to their colleagues as well. So they didn't want the secret out of the bag. They didn't feel that it would do well for them to admit to going through the menopause, and not communicating with the line manager. And the line managers very often aren't very clued up about how to have conversations either. So another survey we did on changing the conversation, 96% of the women said they felt unprepared for menopause. Even I was amazed by that. And over 2/3 said that they felt completely unprepared. We just don't learn. And it's not a medical condition, it's just a life transition, just like pregnancy is. And so when women go to the doctor, in another survey on 1,100 women, we found that 37% of them were prescribed antidepressants. 85% of those said they didn't think it was appropriate because they weren't mentally ill. They were just going through the menopause. And 41% of these women were given HRT. And of those, 14% didn't take it. And the ones that did take it, 61% had adverse side effects and had to come off it. So they were just left. There was nothing else offered to them. They were just left to Dr. Google. And in the same survey, 91% said that they wanted to learn more about how to manage their menopause naturally. And it's obviously important because the ONS says quite clearly that this is the fastest growing group in the workplace. And women clearly can't reach their potential. If you think about it, 100 years or so ago, Dr. Scholler was talking about 100 years. Well, 100 years or so ago, we weren't living much past 50. But now, when 40-something is just halfway for many of us, we've got to not just think about how do we overcome these darn symptoms, but also how do we keep ourselves in really good shape? How do we prevent things like osteoporosis and heart disease and dementia? All those things that we're much more prone to after menopause because we no longer have circulating estrogen. And the good news is the research that helps to control symptoms also helps to future-proof your health and prevent those things as well. So the cost to employer, which I said before, we calculated that nearly £5,500 on average is being spent per woman per year. And it costs about £30,000 to replace a manager. So women are leaving the workplace. Some of them are contemplating it, but others actually leave the workplace. And that causes a nightmare. So the ROI for companies, if they support women going through menopause, is that they're likely to have increased productivity, less absenteeism, they'll be more present at work and engaged and able to do their work, and the staff retention will be higher, obviously continuity of business, but it's also good for the company because what is good for the woman is going to be good for the company in the end, and it improves company culture, diversity and inclusion as well. And as far as the women are concerned, they're going to feel more supported, they'll feel more loyal, their careers stay on track, they'll be healthier, they'll feel present at work, they'll feel able to do their job with renewed confidence and much more motivated, not just in the workplace, but at home as well, in their relationships with their family and their partners. So some of you may already be doing something in the workplace. There was a study that was published a few years ago on menopause in the workplace that looked mainly at the problem. I know there have been talks going on in workplaces and some training for line managers, but not a lot has been done to address the solution other than giving women more flexible working hours, maybe a desk fan, sitting them near the window and an M badge effectively. And that's not what women want. Women need a solution. They need to learn how to meet their needs. They need to get their nutrients back into an optimum range. And we know that billions of women around the world have got low levels of nutrients that are only getting worse as they get older. And once your ovaries pack up, a woman is never going to have circulating estrogen without accessing some of Mother Nature's estrogen if she isn't going to take hormones. And so it is really important. We specialize in helping women naturally. Our process is taking a woman, for example, from feeling anxious, lacking concentration, having brain fog and fatigue, through to feeling calm, productive, clear thinking, and energetic. And just to give you one example, there is a little film that you'll have a clip to after this, so you can watch and see, because it says far more than my words can about the complete transformation that women go through on this program. One of them was Professor Jo Brewis, and she was one of the authors of the Government in the Workplace report. And I met her at a conference at the beginning of last year, and she admitted to me that she thought she had early Alzheimer's, and she was feeling depressed. Obviously, she was tired, and she had acne on her face for the first time, and she had all sorts of bowel issues as well. And I invited her to come on our program. She was actually thinking of leaving the workplace because she couldn't string a sentence together. She couldn't remember anyone's name, and it became embarrassing. And by the time she finished the program, she was symptom-free. She's actually now gone on and become head of department at her university and is glowing. She has no skin problems. She's just doing really well. And so from my perspective, it's so heartwarming to see the transition that these women go through, and it helps them to carry on with their lives. So because I had 1 million women on my hands trying to work out how to deal with them, I set up a 6-week virtual course, which has been running for nearly 3 years. And it's helping women in groups, but we also give them individual help. We write programs for them individually, but they also come together as a community if they want to. And if they want, they can have some one-to-one help. And it's all done virtually from the comfort of their own home or from their desk or wherever they want to participate. And they get help and information that's life-changing and will help them not just with menopause, but in the long term. And the results are spectacular, as you'll see when you watch the film. And is very, in fact, with the day that we made those films, I was actually crying because I'd forgotten how sick these women were and how close to the edge. Some of them were feeling suicidal. Some of them, they just didn't recognize themselves anymore. They looked in the mirror and they just kind of checked out. And so it's to see them all glowing again and feeling fabulous was just so heartwarming. In terms of what we do with corporations, we do lunch and learns so that we can do that via Zoom. And in fact, I did one with Cisco not long ago globally, and they had men involved as well. And the Global Wellbeing Director, Sheila of Cisco, said that they'd never had a response to any other health initiative they'd done like that. And the men came forward and said that they wanted to be educated as well as partners and line managers. So I was actually really, it was just such a moving experience. And we go into the workplace and we survey the women to find out what they want and how they want it delivered so that we can report that back to you. And we also measure the impact of menopause in the workplace, as you saw those 2 small studies. So we're happy to repeat that in the workplace. And that really helps to give you more information if you're looking to get colleagues on side to help take this initiative forward. And I know that in Bank of America, they were looking at making menopause a new life stage in their well-being package. So we're still on this journey, but having the data helps to make the case to support women. So once we've got the report, we come back and we present it so that you've got that, you can share it with your colleagues. Obviously, because of COVID-19, we've been supporting women with stress and anxiety and helping them be in a more positive place. We've just launched a new stress and anxiety course, and also run a tea time session, which is a virtual video session where women come and just share with each other. We have some guest speakers, we chat amongst ourselves, and I help them to manage during this time. We have webinars, we have self-help courses, the virtual 6-week program, and also the one-to-one sessions like I've been running from my Ollie Street clinic for many, many years. So lots of different things to choose from. We have a survey, which I'd love it if you could fill in. It's just 10 questions, and it will help us to help you to know what you're already doing about menopause in the workplace, what you need help with in particular, and what we can do to tailor-make to help the women in your workplace to be more productive, because we know that women are scared and they're not speaking out. We know that they're being ridiculed and stereotyped, and that's not good for anybody. And the fear is unnecessary, and it's also unnecessary for them to go on suffering or leave the workplace. We know from our experience that having corporate support and expert help together help to improve well-being and productivity, and that's obviously where we want to be going. All these wonderful things that we've been talking about today at this conference are so important too. But if a woman is sick and not able to perform, it's hard for her to rise up and fulfill her potential. So going back to what Dr. Scholler says, not on my watch. I want to make sure that while I'm still around, that women get fair play in terms of their health and well-being, so that they can become the very best version of themselves and love who they are and be productive in the workplace, because it's a win-win situation for everybody. So thank you so much for listening, and I'm very happy to answer any questions. If anyone would like to get in touch, I know Vanessa's got my details. It's just maryon@maryonstewart.com to email, and you can download the questionnaire and also the film link as well. So please do get in touch if there's anything we can do to help you. We'd love to. I'll stop sharing my screen, and if anyone has any questions, I know we're running terribly late, but I'm not in a hurry. So if anyone does have any questions, I'm happy to hang around to answer them.
Maryon, it would be great. I don't know if you want to send the link to that video, because obviously I've seen it, over to Leona, and we'll post it into the chat group. Just one of the things that, well, if anyone's thinking of asking a question, just to kind of, add in a little bit from me, Maryon's done a personal plan for me. It's not taboo to admit that you're in perimenopause, or, you're menopause anymore. So kind of putting it out there, that I'm due to start, but it's very, very comprehensive, and it's really kind of helped. And also I've seen, I remember going to Dr. Maryon, a lunch she invited me to, which probably was about 13 years ago, and long before I'd ever thought about menopause, and I was mortified. Like, I was sitting around this table with all these women, I was like, oh my god, if those are the symptoms, my life is over, and things like that. And it's an amazing how you kind of, as you get older and you kind of find out more. And obviously having Maryon as, not only as a friend, but as a professional and a leader in our industry, it's kind of eased me into it, that actually it doesn't have to be as horrific as kind of some of the stuff that we read and stuff like that. So I think for networks, just to pick up on a couple of things, what Shola said earlier on about being inclusive, I think women coming into perimenopausal and who are menopausal are part of that inclusive group. Let's not forget the other generations that exist within our networks. I think that's really important. Just something to flag to you, there is actually Wellbeing Week is coming up in June. It's on the 22nd to the 26th of June. So you may want to think about doing something kind of virtual in that time around menopause. And I think the point around men is very important as well, enabling men to understand what women are going through. I know, my husband thinks I have these crazy moments, but kind of to try and explain to him, he's a little bit more au fait now. But it's hormonal and kind of working to get it under control.
We did a survey on men actually, and it was really interesting. They do feel rejected, and they feel really frustrated because they haven't got a clue. They're just scared as well, and it's just no one's taught. The women are afraid to speak, the men are afraid to speak, and it's just a disaster. And it doesn't have to be like that.
So it doesn't look like anyone's asking questions. So Maryon, thank you so much. You're absolutely wonderful. You've got a Facebook group as well, haven't you?
Yes.
That I often
making the midlife switch.
Making the midlife switch. So we'll put a link to that in the chat group as well. But thank you, Maryon. I do appreciate you've dialed in from the States. So it's probably about 5:30 in the morning for you now. So thank you ever so much, Maryon. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been really great to hear all the speakers as well.